Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you and welcome to our Legal and Finance Committee meeting. Today is Wednesday, July 27th, 2022. We'll start, please, with a roll call and determination of quorum.
Armstrong.
Here.
Roseland. Here. Nordstrom.
Here.
Solomon.
Here.
Jones.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. And now it is time for the adoption of the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Have Mr. Nordstrom making a motion, second by Mr. Jones. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, continuing on. Moving on to general public comment. Now is the time for members of the public to discuss or express concerns to the council on any issue not on the agenda. Action will not be taken at this meeting on any issue not on the agenda except by placement on the agenda by unanimous vote of the council members present. We do have some public request forms. They are in relation to the last item, I believe. So do we do this now or later?
Later.
Later?
Later.
Okay, great. All right, moving right along. Are there any other public comments? Nope. Okay, great. We're going to close. We're going to go to consent items 1 through 15. I guess we'll just kind of roll through these. Mayor's items are like 1 through 3. We can start with our police department. Chief Hedrick, would you mind addressing 4 through 7 to our committee, please?
Yes, thank you. Wow, that's loud today. Okay, so the first item, we're asking for authorization to approve and accept the additional project Safe Neighborhood Grant funding. This is a grant that we've been in operation with since 2018, so this would just be the annual allocation to this grant that we're asking to receive. This funding for item number 4 helps to fund one of our detectives that's assigned to the Project Safe Neighborhood Task Force. They are focused exclusively on intervention of violent crimes fueled by methamphetamine and gang involvement. And anytime we have firearms connected to the drug trade, we turn those cases over to the task force. So essentially, we're just asking to continue with this grant that we've been involved in since 2018. And if there are concerns about requirements and such, the only requirement from us for the grant to continue is that we report on our violent gun and drug arrests and any task force activities. And those are things that we would typically do anyway. So if it's okay, I can move to number 5 if there are no further questions on that. Again, this $8,000 for item number 5 is just additional funding that we weren't able to utilize. And the same Project Safe Neighborhood Grant is going to be asking us to, if we can accept this $8,500 designated for travel. And we can also use it to help support operations. So we're essentially just asking to receive this additional funding. And item number 6, this is specific to our work with Journey On. As some of you know, I elected to continue with my education a couple years ago, and part of my involvement with Johns Hopkins University allows us to participate in grant funding specific to local pilot programs, and we thought Journey On would be a good fit for that funding. The only requirements for this would be Journey On would have to report their program successes and operational numbers, and I'm told they are prepared to do that. Item number 7 is our JAG grant. This is a grant that we apply for every single year. In the past, we've used it to fund things like radios and equipment. It's typically equipment-based. We always go together with the sheriff's office on this grant. We apply jointly, and therefore a lot of the equipment requests are things that benefit both agencies. And we did provide a list of the items that this funding will be used for if we're allowed to accept it. Our internet crimes against children computers, those are very expensive computers due to all the high-tech stuff they need to have on it, and therefore they're very costly. We felt like this would be a good fit. The crime scene mapping and forensic equipment that we're requesting, those are items that are utilized in major crashes or crime scenes throughout the region, and it's just, they're due for an upgrade. We have some additional forensic crime scene processing equipment that we are asking for, along with some digital cameras. And we've been in communication with the folks that facilitate the Justice Assistance Grant, and we're getting like the thumbs up that all this equipment appears that it'll fit. And so to address the question of what strings are attached, we are simply required to report on the equipment that we purchase and the utilization of the funds, and then we keep track of the equipment in our inventory until its lifespan is over. And those are the only things that are asked of us if we receive this funding. So I threw a lot at you there, but if there are any questions, I'd be happy to address that.
Stand by. Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the Chief of Police, if I may. Chief, first of all, I want to compliment you and commend you on pursuing your doctorate degree. I know what that process is. I know it's daunting, and I would like to offer my help in any way that I can. Been there, done that, so happy to help, and congratulations on taking that on. Items 4 and 5, I'd like a little more clarity, please, on why they're two separate applications. I know you said the one's for travel, but then for operation support. Since they're two separate items needing separate approval, can you break that down a little more, please?
So the way I understand it is when we applied for this grant back in 2018, we were going to have to continue to come forward annually to make sure that we were still wanting to move forward with this project as a city. And so, and every year since 2018, we've brought this back to the council for approval and acceptance. You know, what I'm being told is that we would have been able to use this $8,000 in 2020 for training and for sending some of our folks on the task force to training, or sometimes our federal partners have training in Sioux Falls, for example, but due to COVID, we weren't able to do that. So that funding just kind of sat in a bank, so to speak, and now that the federal government is getting back into training and such again, now we're hoping to utilize that funding to train with them, so to speak. So if there is a conference or something in Sioux Falls, we'd be able to utilize that. And
so item 4 is just the annual renewal, and then 5 is money that wasn't able to be used, and now it's coming back into play, and you're requesting use for that as well.
yes, you said it much more succinctly than I did.
Well, I have my doctorate, so that's part of what, what goes.
Fair enough.
All right, very good. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Super, thank you. Mr. Nordstrom, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the Chief, if I may, please. Chief Hendrick, on the grants and everything that we're coming up in, I'm looking for if there's anything coming in from the MacArthur Foundation this time around.
No.
Just to give you a heads up, there is a lot of misinformation about the MacArthur grants coming up that I'm starting to see on social media, so wanted to give you a heads up on that. And if it's not related to this, I will yield the floor. Thank you.
Yep, no relation. Thank you.
Right, thank you so much. Okay, moving right along, Chief Culberson, do you want to take number 8, please?
I would be happy to. We're asking for approval to spend $908,000 for our fire training tower. Back in this last legislative session, Senate Bill 51 was pushed forward by Senator Johnson, who did some great work and got the governor to sign a piece of legislation that allowed $850,000 to flow to us in order to build that tower, and it's just the tower portion. So we're at that stage. Obviously, $908,000 is more than $850,000, so we have some other funding sources in place, which includes the $1.5 million that you all approved last year. I guess I should have started this with, sorry, I failed to get the attachment of the pictures of what it would look like, the conceptualized drawings. They are attached to the agenda now, so you should be able to see that.
Great. Okay, I believe we have some questions. Please stand by. Mr. Solomon, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chief, do you want to remind us of where this training tower is going to be located?
Great, thank you. Yeah, it'll be out on Creek Drive, just to the north of Pepsi. If you go out past Four Seasons Sports Center and go down Creek Drive, it's on the east side of the road down there on Creek Drive.
And for the sake of, for the public especially, do you want to talk about the advantages of having this training tower and,
Sure.
and what has happened since we haven't had one for a while?
Right, we've had to make do for about the last 7 years. We haven't had a live burn tower or a live burn room. We haven't had a training tower. So we've had to access some other things. We do have that small tower at Station 1, but it can only be used for very limited things. We've leveraged our relationships with Ellsworth Air Force Base to get our live burn certifications for all of our new employees, which is problematic at best at times with the federal government, just in the way getting in and out and those types of things. But they've been great to work with and helped us as much as we can. So our training programs have had to take and find different ways of doing it, which is good, but it will be nice to get back to a singular place where we can actually have all of those operations happen and be more consistent in our training.
Final question, when do you expect that this will be ready to roll?
Well, my hope is within the next month that I'll be able to bring forth the infrastructure piece and to ask for advertising authority, which I'll give a presentation what that looks like. So these are two kind of separate pieces. So that piece will be the infrastructure gets put in, and then the tower will be placed on a concrete pad that's incorporated in that infrastructure piece. By allowing this, we can go forward with ordering the tower, and it takes between 9 and 12 months to get that tower here and erected. My hope is that everything times out just about right. The infrastructure gets completed, and they're delivering the tower about that time.
Very well, thank you.
Mr. Jones?
Thank you very much. This is being delivered very low-key by our chief, but this is a huge deal. I've been on the council for 2 years, and I know we've been talking about fire tower for the 2 years that I've been on, and obviously several years before. In our conversations, the chief has told me the project has come forward, and then it's gone away, and come forward and gone away. So this is a big deal, and it deserves congratulations and celebration, and I hope that when it opens, we have some kind of a grand opening. Maybe we pick the largest council person and watch them climb the tower or something, perhaps as a fundraiser to pay off the debt. But this is very exciting. And as the chief has told me, not only is this going to be good for our fire department, it's going to be good for surrounding areas because people will come here, they'll train, they'll visit our city, they'll stay in our hotels. I mean, it'll be great for us in so many ways. So I'm very excited about this. Congratulations. We'll be looking forward to the next steps of it. And this is quite an accomplishment. So thank you.
Thank you.
Chair.
Only the largest?
Bring them all.
Okay, all right. Right, exactly. Okay. Moving right along for our legal and, I'm sorry, our finance department, number 9 through 11. Director Sumption?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Number 9 is standard for our volunteers to get them on workers' compensation. 10, we do this annually to prepare our checks for what is sent to the state for unclaimed property. And 11 is also an annual thing that we do for the downtown bid district. This is just our authorization to go ahead and assess those properties in the downtown district.
Any questions from my colleagues? Great, thank you so much. Director Beegler, would you be so kind to take number 12?
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam Chair. Item 12, if you recall, July 5th, City Council meeting, staff was directed to work with Yasmin Dream LLC to facilitate this property donation to be used as a city park. The quitclaim deed has been executed by Yasmin Dream, and it is attached to this agenda item. So your action now would be to accept the property donation and to direct Mayor and Finance Director to sign all necessary agreements and paperwork to make that become a city park.
Any questions from my colleagues? Thank you, Director Beegler. Moving on to Community Development, Director Fisher.
Madam Chair, if I could defer to Sarah Hansel. She's the division manager that put in the hard labor on this, and this is a great accomplishment.
Great, thank you. Welcome, Ms. Hansel.
Thank you. Good afternoon. This item is a resolution to dissolve tax increment district number 78 in the Orchard Meadows subdivision. This district has paid off and per state law is required to be dissolved. I will point out there is an overlapping tax increment district number 82, also Orchard Meadows. That district is still in place and is still active, but this one is ready to be off the books.
Great. Questions from my colleagues? Thank you. Okay, moving right along, City Attorney's Office, number 14 and 15. Director Landine.
I think item 14, Carla Cushman briefed all of you about in executive session. It was a project. We had issues with it. There was a bond, and we did receive the bond. However, the amount of work and other things it's going to take to correct this exceeds the amount of the bond. So the purpose of the litigation would be to collect the difference.
Any discussion from my colleagues? Okay. And number 15?
I don't have anything to add.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right. Any more discussion, 1 through 15? If not, I'd welcome a motion.
Move approval of items.
A motion from Mr. Jones and a second from Mr. Solomon. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Motion passes. Moving right along to our non-consent items. We have one. Number 16, discussion about I'm sorry, I went ahead. We have public comment. We have some public comment request forms. We've got 9 of them. I'll call you up. We have 3 minutes. We have about 3 minutes for each item. Please come up to the podium when your name is called. State your name, and we look forward to hearing from you. Mr. Brown. Mark Brown.
Thank you.
Great, super. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Mark Bowron.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
And
Thank you.
maybe I hope I didn't misspell it. My name is Mark Bowron, and I am a professor at the South Dakota School of Mines. And I am in the mining department. And I am here to talk about the resolution that is proposed, but I've not seen it. Is that available? The proposed resolution?
Not officially.
Okay.
Well, there is an item linked to the agenda, and we could print it out and provide you with, it was something submitted by a citizen that they're asking the council to consider.
So I have a number of questions.
It was attached online this morning.
You have a copy.
Apologies for the interruption, Professor
No,
Bowman.
my
Please
apologies.
continue.
I have a number of questions, and we were here 2 years ago discussing this very same thing. And I really have, my question is I'm surprised that the council is willing to talk about these issues when there's been no outreach over to the School of Mines that is a good neighbor right down the street. We did have a tentative meeting to talk about some of the factual issues with regard to mining, but then COVID happened and things changed. But I have a couple of comments, particularly with respect to some of the factual information. And I guess I am surprised that the council is willing to consider a resolution based on emotion and an opinion rather than on the facts. The finding of no significant impact by the Forest Service is just that. Those people are professionals, and that's what they do for a living. There was ample opportunity for people to comment, and all I would suggest is that perhaps it would be appropriate for the council to have a meeting, a joint meeting, reach out to the school. We volunteered to host it last time, and it didn't happen. A couple of things additional. Exploration is not mining. The impacts, if there were to be a project to go forward, the permitting process would take probably 10 years if it was ever completed. It would require an environmental impact statement, and multiple people would have, in the area, would have ample opportunity to comment and to have influence over the decision of an environmental impact statement and a permit for any mine going forward. Exploration by a company is simply a business model. Exploration companies do what they do best, and that is explore. Operating companies do what they do best, and that is mine. The best thing in the world would be if in the event that there was a mine to be developed there, it would be developed by an operator who has ample experience, deep pockets, listed on the New York Stock Exchange and so forth. A $20 billion company is more than adequate in financial assets in order to take care of any problem. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much for coming here. Please, if you don't mind waiting, and we'll go through the other public request forms, and then if we have any questions, we would greatly appreciate you as a resource. Thank you. It's okay. Don't worry about it. Okay. Moving along, I hope I say this name right, Larry Mann.
Good
Welcome.
afternoon, Madam Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Larry Mann. I'm representing F3 Gold. Just very quickly, I think you have received a communication from F3, and if you have, that's great, because with 3 minutes, it's hard to convey that depth of data. And I would be happy to meet with any of you at any time that's convenient to you. Let me explain just a couple of different things very quickly that seem to confuse people. Number one, as you can see through the EA, F3 will not be sourcing any water from Rapid Creek, zero. It will be made from a commercial or municipal source. In the past, it's probably going to be lead. They have the available water and it'll be trucked in. The second thing is no water will be discharged into the Rapid Creek drainage. You can't just willy-nilly discharge water. Whether you're on private land or public land, a discharge of water requires what's called an NPDES permit, which is granted by, in this case, by the state through the authorization of the EPA. So you can't just do those sorts of things. The third thing is we have absolutely no interest whatsoever in drilling underneath Pactola, zero. There's nothing there for us to look at based on our assessment of the geology that exists. Keep in mind that the Black Hills have been explored for decades. And even within the last 40 or 50 years, I would expect that there are tens of thousands of drill holes that have been drilled in Black Hills. I think it would be a challenge for anybody who wasn't familiar with the process to be able to go out and find any one of those. So for the first time in the history of exploration in the Black Hills, companies were always issued what was called a categorical exclusion, which meant that they could submit a plan of operation to the Forest Service. The Forest Service would review it, make any modifications to that plan that they thought was meaningful, and then you could go ahead and apply for, and it's not a permit, there's no permit issues, it's just an approval of a plan of operation. The Forest Service would approve that, send that to the, communicate that to the state. It's the state that supervises drilling and plugging and those sorts of things. For the first time ever, the Forest Service required an EA. We first submitted our plan of operation to the Forest Service in December of 2018. It has now taken nearly but by the end of this objection period, it will have taken almost 4 years and in excess of $500,000 to drill holes on 5 acres. Now, if that seems like a practical way to manage the natural resources, given the history, and I'm not familiar with any exploration project. There was an issue down at Keystone where some drilling fluids escaped. That's the only thing I've ever known of. And those drilling fluids, by the way, are biodegradable. They're natural. I am fairly convinced that there's a good chance that some of this exploration drilling will hit what we call intercepts. In other words, it's going to contact gold. It's a gold-bearing body. And I don't doubt that it may hit gold. The question then becomes, is it just coincidental? Or where within the geology does it exist? So additional discovery would have to be made to determine what's its width, what's its depth, what's its strike. All of those things would have to be determined, and it would take 8 to 10 years just to determine whether or not it was an economic ore body. I am familiar with no exploration project that has found a new ore body. Everything that's been mined in the last 40 years has been mined on historic sites. There's nothing new that has been found. With that, I know my time's up, Madam Chair, but I'll stand by for questions.
Thank you so much. Okay. Next speaker, Mr. Wrench.
Thank you, Madam Chairman and the committee. I come here today as a citizen who fishes in Rapid Creek and drinks the water here, and I've been asked by some friends and acquaintances with the Rapid Creek Watershed Association to posit some questions. And I would point out that the Forest Service here requires a bond for all damages to Forest Service resources, including water. The state requires the Forest Service one's unlimited. The state requires a $10,000 bond for damage to state property. You must ask yourself, what happens if our water, the city has the right to 89% of the water in Pactola Lake, what happens if our water gets polluted by these drilling process and that water comes through Rapid City and is damaged? What does the city have to do with it? And how does the city get noticed? So I want to just read to you some questions that these caring folks have asked. And one would be, who pays for the damage to the water that flows through Pennington County and Rapid City if in fact it somehow goes bad because of this exploration process? Who's liable for that trouble? You know, water knows no jurisdictional boundaries. It goes where it goes. We drink it, we use it. It's the heart of our community, and you have to think of those things. Also, you must ask, what would be the cost of upgrading our city water treatment facility and monitoring it to know if there was some type of a environmental spill or leak? Think of it, coming all the way through Pactola Lake. How are you ever notified? Also, ask yourselves, will the Forest Service notify the water managers of our community if something does happen so that we can attempt to do something to alleviate it? What is the Forest Service capacity for oversight? Will they have a project officer that is watching over this all the time, not just making visits? Will they be on site consistently when these operations occur 24/7 every year? So I would just ask the council, when you're looking at this type of a resolution, to realize that municipalities have the right to protect the water source of the community, and maybe it should be considered or researched by somebody what powers you have and what the city may want to demand in case there is some horrible disaster. We've all seen these situations where they tap into a mine and they think it's all going to be just fine, and then something opens up and it ruins an entire waterway. What do we do? So that's my comment. Thank you for listening to me, and have a good day.
Thank you, sir. Next person, Ms. Martley, Suzanne Martley. Am I saying this right? Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for the opportunity to come and talk to you as a citizen who drinks water. And thank goodness for all the rain we've had lately. My family...
Could you bring the microphone
Yep,
down just
sure.
a little bit? Thank you.
Short people got no reason.
I hear you.
Anyway, thanks for the rain. We're all thankful for the rain, and thank you for the opportunity to comment. 4 generations of our family have fished, paddled, swum, hiked, picnicked, and just relaxed around Pactola and in the Rapid Creek watershed. We have consumed water. We use it to water our garden, to grow vegetables, and we've taught our kids and grandkids to be good stewards of this very precious resource. Rapid City has the rights to 89% of what is in Pactola, and Rapid City also has a duty to its citizens to protect our drinking water. The power to prevent pollution or injury to any water supply within a mile of the city or belonging to the municipality, you can regulate that. You can ask for surety about that. We're thankful that you're considering a resolution. That's just an objection. The process will move forward. But we'd like you to consider further actions to make sure that the city and the county can respond to any untoward, unexpected happening, because those happenings always happen. And I understand the gentleman previous talking about the history of gold, and there were never any permits, and there were categorical exclusions. Well, if you look at the history of mining leaks, spills, ruptures, et cetera, it's pretty grim. That is within the state records, and we can certainly supply that history if you want to know why we care. Finally, I just want to say that comments about the NEPA process and the Forest Service really were very interesting to me as a NEPA lawyer. I'm not here talking to you as a NEPA lawyer, but the categorical exclusion is no more because of changes in the law over the last year. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next speaker, Kathy Thrash.
Thank you, Council. I'm Kathy Thrash. I'm a member of the Rapid City Sustainability Committee, and Alan is our committee chair. So we would like to speak together if we could, just share our
I
proposed...
had him next, so that's great.
Oh, is that okay? We do it together? Okay.
We were going to tag team this, and we had on our letter that I would start out and she would finish. Is that okay?
Absolutely. Go ahead. Just state your name.
Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Alan Anderson. I'm the current chair of your Rapid City Standing Committee on Sustainability. And Kathy is also on the committee, and Patricia Scarborough is here also. We first commented on this a couple years ago when you guys voted to oppose it. And it came on our agenda Monday night for our Sustainability Committee meeting, and we spent a lot of time talking about it again, trying to figure out what if anything, we should do at this point. And we decided to put together a letter in support of any efforts that you guys might take to oppose it, and we'd just like to read that. As the Rapid City Sustainability Committee, we support the Legal and Finance Committee objecting to the permitting of drilling for exploration of gold in the areas of Jenny Gulch in Rapid City watershed, and recommend that the Rapid City Common Council prepare and submit a formal response to the U.S. Forest Service opposing the proposed project. We support these actions based on the following key points. The entire Rapid Creek watershed and the areas above the Madison limestone aquifer outcrop are fully connected and potentially influenced by the drilling and possible future mining. The Madison outcrop runs all along the exterior of the Black Hills. The Madison aquifer serves as the main water supply for Rapid City and many other communities in the Black Hills. Additionally, the project site is located approximately 1/2 mile from Pactola Reservoir, which was stated, as was stated earlier, for which the Rapid City has 89% of the water rights. Any release of materials or chemicals from the project site, intended or not, has great potential to pollute Rapid City's water supply and the water supply for just about every community in the Black Hills. The risk of contamination of both surface and groundwater from the proposed exploratory drilling and potential subsequent mining activities has not been quantitatively defined, in our opinion. The cost to replace our local and regional water supplies needs to be fully documented in the risk and provided for with sufficient bonding and sureties. While the environmental assessment prepared by the U.S. Forest Service considered environmental factors only as required by NEPA, the full environmental effects of diamond core exploratory drilling being proposed by F3 Gold LLC may not be entirely known. Technology and updated drilling methods outpace the studies and laws made to protect the environment in which they are taking place. So I'll switch it over.
Several years ago, Homestake did deep exploration to find gold ore to continue mining and resolved to eventually close that deep underground mine. And what we're considering and asking is what probability exists to find the gold ore and then mine of it, enough of it to make it an economic benefit. It seems to me that doing the exploration that will not lead to mining eventually or may not is just kicking the can 8 to 10 years down the road saying it still won't be our problem then. Well, it will be a problem then. Now, the company that's doing the exploratory drilling, says they will not mine, but will rather sell the rights to the mining companies that come in and do their job. Now, we can sit back and say, well, we hope that they don't find anything, or if they do, then we'll handle it later. But we do just not feel that this is an adequate response. We feel that the environmental assessment, or preferably a more adequate environment impact statement, should please clearly show the risks and the justification of mining to support that exploration drilling. Now, sadly enough, there are more mining companies and drilling exploration proposals in the Black Hills area, so this will not be the last discussion that we are having around protecting our region's water supply and livelihood. Almost a quarter of the Rapid Creek watershed upstream from Rapid City is subject to gold mining claims, according to the rapidcreekwatershed.org website. Rapid City and surrounding region, we are growing at breakneck speed, and the protection of our water supply is vital to our sustainability, to our well-being, and the growth of our community. We just can't emphasize this enough. Everything in our community depends on a sustainable source of the clean water that we need, and it's from the health of our residents, to our recreational opportunities, to our food supply, tourism, industry, the wildlife, economic development, our future growth, just the quality of life that we have living here. Water is truly life and is essential not only to our existence, but to our future generations as well. And the cost to replace a water supply would be tremendous if it were ever contaminated. Can we just learn from the other communities that have been impacted by, spills and disasters, and just work on this to protect our water supply before it's too late? I remember on a personal note, I was dating a gentleman years ago in the 90s, late 90s, who worked at Wharf Mine, was constantly under just the detrimental effects of what was happening there, and it was terrifying. We just appreciate your support. We look forward to contributing on this topic and many others related to sustainability, and we thank you for your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both. Patricia Scarborough.
Hello, my name is Patricia Scarborough. As a concerned citizen, I would just like to reiterate what has already been said in opposition to the exploratory drilling. If the company is allowed to perform its exploratory drilling, and if they find what they are looking for, it seems that the money will have all the power to proceed with the mining. And the subsequent impact to our water sources and recreational area cannot be undone. I urge you to please use what power you have to oppose this exploratory drilling. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Justin Harriman.
Thank you, council members. I appreciate you very much taking the time to consider this resolution. As I told you last week in the council meeting, F3's playing Russian roulette with our economy, and we really need to stop right now and consider the motivation. What is the motivation behind the $500,000 that they've already spent on this project and the additional $1 million that they're going to spend? What's my motivation for skipping lunch today and pushing 3 meetings to show up here? What's the motivation of a very important attorney who probably had to push some business to be here? Because we care about the future of our community. We care about the opportunity for my grandchildren that hopefully I'll have someday to have clean drinking water. What do the folks from F3 care about? They live in Minneapolis. They care about money. This is a very, very simple decision. Are you going to focus on infrastructure and development and future safety of our watershed and the economy of Rapid City and keep growing this community and look at all of the economic benefit that comes to our community from that watershed? Our tourism, our agriculture, those are the industries that drive us. The national defense implications. You're right, this is just an exploratory drilling project. The chances of it causing degradation are not substantial, but the long-term consequential when they find gold, because it's not a matter of if. They would not be spending this money if they were not very confident with a very high rate that there is gold there that they're going to find. And what happens when they find it? Because I'm not going to say if. At this point, it's a when. What are the consequences for our community? We can stop it now, or we can kick the can down the road 10, 12 years and deal with it then, and it's going to cost us a lot more money. And you're going to see a lot of attorneys up here. We're going to see a lot of other things happening. So our choice is to solve it now, say no, not in our community. Let's focus on the industries that we know are going to grow our economy and make future jobs for our kids and grandchildren, or we can let F3 take some money out of our state and let a Canadian mining company, because it's not going to be U.S. based, they're going to be Canadian based, I guarantee you that. Go look at the history. Take a couple $2 billion out and put our water at threat. It's a simple existential question. Future or potential to harm? To me, it's a simple choice. We take the gun out of their hands and say no. It's time to say no today. And that's what I'm asking you to do. Appreciate your support very much.
Thank you, Mr. Harriman. Last speaker request form, Annie Bouchard.
Ampetu Washde Mitakiapi. My name is Annie Bashan. As you can tell by my appearance, I didn't expect to be here today. I was down cleaning up our center. And, you know, in listening to all of this, I think it's important to remember, sir, that mining goes back a really long time here. And it was really at the crux that allowed the United States government to break its treaties with our people here. So this is not something that is new. This has been faced on a repeated basis over and over and over and over again. The Pope of the Catholic Church met with leaders in Canada to make an apology for all the wrongs that had been done in regards to residential boarding school. That reverberates. Mining has been at the forefront of that from the beginning in these lands. And as was well said before, this is one of those existential questions that this is a council that has repeatedly said that the treaties with the Indian nations are important to respect and honor. You're in the midst of creating and looking at the vision funds with the Haisapa Community Center and resolving boarding school challenges here. That mining drive all the way back then, this is continuing to reverberate today. Your ancestors, maybe some of your ancestors sat in city council meetings back then to say, what are we going to do? We know the consequences here that have already occurred. We know the destruction of the land. We know what happened with the genocide of our people. This is not something that is not well documented in history. This goes far beyond the most essential water that we need. It really is at the heart of who we want to be here. Are you going to be the leaders that you say you are? Are you going to choose the financial promises that these two individuals are talking about? Because I have great respect for the South Dakota School of Mines and for engineers. I was a COO of an engineering company here when I first came here. Lots of relatives that are engineers. My brother graduated from that school. And if you need proof of the destruction of the land, you can just go up in the hills, you can see it. So those destructive forces of drilling are not invisible to people whatsoever. We have plenty of spaces that were never taken care of responsibly. There's no history of responsible action with this industry. We have people, a way of life, the sanctity and sacredness of this region, or financial interests. We're at that crux once again, and we're trusting you as our leaders to do what you say you're going to do. And be those thoughtful individuals to reach down in your tante, your heart. This goes beyond some emotional appeal. I think somebody said this is just about emotions. If you can say that the lives of individuals is just emotions, then you have a different way of looking at it than I do. This is serious. This is very serious. Thank you for your serious consideration there. Thank you for all the people and their efforts to bring this forward. Wopila.
Thank you. I will open this up for discussion to my colleagues. I don't have anybody in the queue that would like to make any comments. Mr. Jones.
Thank you very much, and thank you everybody who spoke today. I have a unique history with gold and mining and Homestake. I lived in Lead, South Dakota for 16 years, was a school teacher there, was on the city council in Lead for 10 years. For full disclosure, Mr. Mann and I both served on the Lead City Council for several years together, so I want that to be known and out. I haven't seen him for ages, so unofficially, it's nice to see you, Larry. And I've seen what can happen, good and bad, with mining. The Homestake Mining Company was in Lead for well over 100 years and was what Lead and the Northern Hills was. People worked at Homestake. Homestake provided the water. Homestake took care of the streets. Homestake provided the recreation. And for many years, over 100 years, the gold mining industry supported the town. And The city of Lead operated based on what Homestake said because of money. Ma'am, as you kind of mentioned, finances were at the heart of it, and that was important. But we've come a long way since then. We've seen the risks and the dangers that mining, mistakes in mining, can cause. There are Superfunds around the country that are yet to be cleaned up because of problems and mistakes. So, you know, we have said numerous times sitting up on this council that we are not in favor of any kind of mining that could impact our watershed. And we went on record of that with that vote not too long ago. There's apparently this document is the resolution that was attached to the agenda today. Is that correct? Okay. So since it was just attached to an email this morning, I've been at work all day and I haven't even had a chance to look at this, so I don't even know what it says. So I hope we're not taking any action on something like this today that was just placed in our hands. That would be reckless, rushed, and wrong all at the same time. But I can't help but agree and feel very strongly about our purpose, our need, our obligation to protect our water. Every night on the news you hear about areas that are suffering drought and don't have water. We are so blessed in western South Dakota and Rapid City to have 89% of the ownership of the water in Pactola and the Madison Aquifer and everything that supplies us with water. Director Tech has talked to us about a multi-million-dollar new water processing plant that's going to be coming online. And so we have taken tremendous steps for now and the future to make sure we have water for our citizens. Seems to me it would be counterproductive to entertain something that would cause that not to happen. I would guess that the plant that's being built, may I direct a question to Director Tech? Absolutely. And I know this is way just totally out, oh, he's not there? I'll direct it to him anyway. So, but it would be my hunch that any kind of a plant that we would build to process water and et cetera probably wouldn't be one that could deal with contamination from mining. It would be one that would clean the water and filter the water for people to drink and use, as we have for many, many years, not one to clean up the messes that might come from mining. So, you know, if there's actions to be taken here soon, you know, we need to be prudent and wise. Because if we don't protect the water, who's going to? There isn't anyone else. I remember the gentleman in the back in the green shirt who was here, maybe it was a couple years when this first came forward, you know? And you brought some tremendous information forward. I really enjoyed listening to what you had to say and the emails that you sent us. You know, you were fired up and you were passionate, but mostly you were right. And so if we don't take care of the water, who's going to? There isn't anyone else to do it. That's the thing. We can't say, well, gee, we hope Pennington County does it, or gee, we hope Lawrence County does it, or Meade County, or whoever. There really isn't anyone else that has standing, which you've heard a term me use on this council many times, that has standing to take action. So I'm hesitant to do anything that would negatively impact our water supply, and I really encourage us to stand strong and protect the water, as we have in the past and councils before us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Mr. Nordstrom, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, he disappeared. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just coming at this a little bit different angle. I've been working with the School of Mines and some different professors and the brain trust that we have over at the School of Mines, and I think it's this is a good opportunity to hear more from the School of Mines, and we're missing that opportunity. So I would like to continue building that relationship that we have with the School of Mines to explain what we are facing. And I appreciate bringing forward all the worst case scenarios on this, but there is way I am reading the documentation from the United from the Forest Service, and what they are requiring of F3. It seems to me that there's a lot of things that have yet to be covered, to be explained to us before I, shall we say, can take a look at the resolution in full. What I'm really more nervous about, to be honest with you folks, is that I'm more worried about septic tanks in our Black Hills versus this drilling. This is the drilling part is step one, and there is a lot of things that we have to be concerned about with drilling, but this document that we have in front of us, it is called the Drilling Project, a draft decision notice and finding of no significant impact. That is a document that needs to be read over and very well explained to us, because there's a lot of things that have to be complied with for the drilling. The biggest thing is for me is that the drilling is going to be only taking place going down to about 1,000 feet. It's going to go into igneous rock. Now, I know a lot of us don't know what igneous rock is, but it's basically not anywhere near close to the Madison Formation, and especially when we're talking about 1,000 feet versus several thousand feet to get down to the Madison through igneous rock. There's a lot of smarter people that explain that a lot better than I can, but the essence of these paths that are going to be constructed on the different sites that we're looking at from the map are not much bigger than two houses, the equivalent of two houses in the size of the old Robbinsdale area of town. Approximately 2,300 square feet is what they're going to be covering. Then the way it's explained to me is that there is going to be a containment device put underneath of that. So if there's any hydraulic leakage or any of that such nature, that will be taken care of through that containment process. The other part of that has to do with the water that's going to be used on it. Somebody gave me the indication that with linseed oil was going to be used in this process, and I haven't found the facts to be justify that just yet. But again, we'll have the F3 people kind of explain that to us when it comes to that part. But in essence, it's a biodegradable material. I've seen the MSDS on linseed oil. It's nothing to it. So it's a mixture of 50 gallons of water to 1 gallon of linseed oil. So if that even gets out of the containment area, more likely Mother Nature is going to be able to deal with it anyway. But again, that's F3 will be able to share that information with us as a matter of fact. And again, I'm more worried about septic tanks in this area versus any drilling. And keep in mind that this is the first step of many steps to go to before we even consider going to mining. Big difference between core drilling and mining. We're not even close to mining. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody understood where I'm at on this. So I am more concerned about septic tanks than this core drilling. Thank you. I yield.
Mr. Solomon, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, everybody, for your comments, both of you and all of you. I don't oppose responsible mining, but frankly, I think the rewards to the company for this project is not worth the potential risk to our water supply. But that said, we just got this resolution. It was not attached to the agenda last night when I reviewed the agenda, so I think it was attached earlier today. Really haven't had a chance to read it, and I have a hard time signing on to a resolution that I can't have independently verified by experts. And so what I would request is that we have the School of Mines and experts, as well as those who presented it, look at this to see if it's factual. I want to make sure that whatever's stated on here is all factual before we would sign a resolution. If the resolution was the Rapid City supports protecting our water supply, I could sign on to that, but I don't know the individual details. And I'm not an expert, not a mining expert, not an engineer, but the heart of protecting our water, absolutely. So I would have a hard time making any decisions on this today. For one, not just for me to read it, but I would like it independently verified by experts. And so that's kind of where I'm at before we would make a decision. It might be completely factual. I just want to make sure that it's taking all things into account before we would all sign on to it. So I just want to leave it at that. Thank you.
Mr. Jones?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Do we know where this resolution came from? Okay, because I don't know anything about it. As Mr. Solomon just said, we just are looking at this now, and so we'd like to know a little history on it. Thank you.
Anyone else want to talk on this before I speak? All right, thank you. First and foremost, I'll address the resolution. This was drafted by a citizen and was brought forward to me. I too had the same concerns. Full transparency, I'm not an engineer. I'm not a hydrologist. I don't have my PhD in this matter. So I actually ran it by our water treatment division manager, right? Stay in my lane, and had Jeff Crockett look over this. Has his seal of approval on the technical terms. In addition, we have somebody here from our city attorney's office. Justin has also been working on that as of last week. This is not something that I do care to rush through, but we want to make sure that the information is accurate and true. So we've run it by city legal, we've run it by some professional members, and so the wording is up to par. Obviously, a resolution doesn't have much teeth to it, but it can serve as a formal objection. So I do apologize that it was just attached today. We did have this conversation last week, whether or not to attach it, and this morning, F3 supporting documentation was put on the agenda, so therefore I thought it would only be fair to put this as well. So it was not some sort of rush-through tactic on my part, and I apologize if that's what it looked like. Another thing that I would like to discuss is before this meeting at 11 o'clock, we received notification that our Rapid City received an award for, the state was recognizing Rapid City for our drinking water excellence. This is 19 years in a row. I think the timing of it is just spot on, and I think if anything, it is encouraging for us to keep this momentum going. So we know that exploratory drilling is not exactly mining, and I understand that. But take this into consideration. If we are in agreement for exploring for gold, understand the next step is mining. And a gentleman that spoke, Mr. Mann, you said there's no doubt we're going to hit gold. So we know that gold is there, right? So we know that. So what is the next step? Well, the next step is to mine for that gold. People don't put in, they don't invest millions of dollars just to write it off to the IRS. This is a business model. You're exploring to look for gold so you can sell the rights to the highest bidder, and they are most often out of state, like F3, or out of the country, like these Canadian firms that come here, and now the taxpayers are dealing with the aftermath, and that is just not right. I am not against gold mining. My wedding ring is made out of gold. I have an antique watch that is made out of gold, but it did not come from the water, our Rapid City watershed. I don't want this in my backyard. We have invested, what, $12 million in Elevate to recruit businesses here. What happens if something leaks into our water system. I just don't think that's smart. I don't think we're protecting our most valuable resource. I have questions. Who does this benefit? Who does the exploratory mining, who does this benefit? Does it benefit our indigenous peoples? Does it benefit our businesses? Does it benefit our tourists, our property owners, our visitors? It benefits F3, and I wish you good luck. But in good conscience, I cannot allow this. And I have been doing my homework for the last 2 years, talking with engineers, talking with hydrologists, referring to the staff that we trust. I appreciate F3. You have been very forthcoming. Letters, emails, your take on the maps, you know, the FAQs were great. But I did pull something out of the frequently asked questions. You said one of the most egregious gaps in the process has been the failure of the Forest Service to conduct meaningful tribal consultations or provide access by tribal officials, resource users, and stakeholders to have a voice. Well, my understanding is a letter went out last week to the U.S. Agriculture Secretary Tom Vislick in Washington, D.C., and it appears that tribal leaders are against this mining. Any kind of drilling, they're against it. Questions that were brought up, I think, need to be reiterated. You know, I think this council is set on focusing on infrastructure. I think we're all in agreement on that. So we know that we're going to need a new water treatment plant, probably in the next 5 to 7 years. What additional treatment processes are going to be added to this plant to mitigate any mining runoff? And most importantly, at what cost to the taxpayers? And likewise, what additional treatment processes need to be added to the treatment plant that we currently have, Jackson Springs? And again, what is it going to cost the taxpayers? You know, the bottom line is, when they find the gold, they're going to sell these claims to the highest bidder. And regardless of the exploratory excuse, the long-term goal is to put a gold mine in our watershed. In my opinion, that is completely unacceptable. You look at Mineral Mountain, you look at Brome, you look at Gold Stake, and I'm sure they gave their safety assurances prior to the mess that they had. And look where they're at. And who is paying for that now? Not Mineral Mountain, not Brome, not Gold Stake, it's the taxpayers. And for these companies to rely on an antiquated 150-year-old mining law, I'm sorry, it's just preposterous. My final question is going to be to our city attorney. What are our legal remedies to prevent any future gold mining in our precious Rapid Creek watershed? Too much is at stake right now. We need to protect our most precious resource. Thank you.
You know, we could certainly look into it. I don't know that the city has the authority to prevent anybody from requesting the opportunity to explore or mine in the Black Hills. I think that's probably going to be a state and federal question.
Okay. Okay. Any more comments? Mr. Solomon, I see you thinking.
I think it is at least worth looking into, but you're probably right. Really, it's going back to what actions we're going to take today, and I don't really think we're in a position to take any actions today. That was really the heart of where I'm at. I would like the School of Mines to weigh in on this. We do value their insights. They are smart. I do definitely want to, and we have heard from citizens. I think that's very important. I've kind of stayed in my default position, but I want to be as fair as I can. I think that's our job as well, is to be fair. But please know, my intention up here is to steward our resources well, and that includes protecting our water. So that's going to be my priority, that whatever we do protects our water as best as possible. So I'm not sure we're just in a position to take any action. I guess that was what I was thinking about chiming in on, is what should we do from here? I don't know what action to take, so.
I think Mr. Roseland wants to speak.
Okay, very well, thank you.
And liaison to the Sustainability Committee for a month now. Been to 2 meetings. And I find these people, citizens of Rapid City, to be highly educated. They're not just people that's crawling out from under a rock. And I really feel like they have a strong foundation to say what they're saying. And I would like to basically have a motion to bring this up to the City Council meeting on Monday, so that all of our colleagues could understand and be a part of the discussion. I'd like to have a motion for that, please.
Without recommendation?
Without recommendations.
A motion for what? The resolution?
A motion to bring this discussion and draft resolution proposal for discussion? Is that
Right,
clarifying?
correct.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second? Just continuing the discussion, I think, to get our colleagues and our other 5 colleagues' input. Absolutely, Mr. Solomon.
So that will give everybody opportunity on the council to review, but also give people on all sides of this discussion an opportunity to review this, to make sure that what we sign on, if we sign on to anything, that it's factual.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Nordstrom?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think it's very important to have the experts weigh in on this, and if they get an opportunity to review the resolution, I'm very comfortable with that. But I think there's a lot of other things that need to be added to the discussion, as how many steps are involved in this before we get to mining, because there's a lot of things that we're skipping over and we're not taking into account all the processes or the issues that are going to be taking place between now, such as the hearing that the Forest Service is going to be holding upcoming on that, and then the School of Mines gets an opportunity to have their input onto this. We haven't heard from, other than what Mr. Mann has represented for today on F3, so it'd be good if we had an opportunity to hear from them. But we just need to have all sides in this conversation. Right now, I keep coming back to my worst case scenario is that we've got bigger issues out there to deal with in the current atmosphere that has to do with septic tanks and versus the core drilling within the hills of Rapid City. But I think it's important that we hear from all sides and give everybody an opportunity to do a full discussion on this. So I'm not ready to go with the support of the resolution at this time, because I agree with Alderman Solomon that we need to have some other eyes on this document, so that we can determine that what is factual, and then to the city attorney's comment about how much jurisdiction do we have over this as well. So I want to hear from him as well what parameters that we are allowed from the city. So that's my comments for now.
Thank you, Mr. Nordstrom. Mr. Jones?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'd like to second the motion and keep the floor, if I may.
Absolutely.
Thank you. So I think we have to decide one of the things we need to discuss as this moves forward is, are we taking and I agree with my colleague, Mr. Solomon, I would love to hear what the School of Mines has to say and hear their input, their comments, and their advice. It's vital to this. They're a great neighbor, and we want to hear what they have to say. Mr. Nordstrom is talking about, you know, the details of the process, the technical part of it. This is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. And we know there's a lot of steps that have to take place. I think we all acknowledge that. But are we going to be sharing our thoughts and opinions on the steps of the process, or are we going to be taking a stand one way or the other for or against mining and exploration in the Black Hills and the watershed? And it appears to me, based on the discussion here of the majority of the Legal and Finance Committee, we are more interested in the general concept of what impact will exploration and mining have on Rapid Creek and the watershed versus the technical steps that will take place, A, B, C, D, E, and so on. You know, there's no doubt that F3 is a company that knows what they're doing, and they would know the steps to do, A, B, C, D, E, and so on. As I mentioned earlier, I've known Mr. Mann a long time. He is an expert in this area as well. He's worked with mining companies. He's worked with the state legislature. So he knows this area and this topic extremely well. So there's no doubt that this is a good company as far as do they know what they're doing. That's not, in my opinion, not on the table. What's on the table is philosophically, do we support or don't or not support exploration and mining in this potentially impacted area? And I hope, and Mr. Roseland's motion is good, that we'll carry that discussion from now to the council meeting Monday so it can be continued. Thank you.
All right, the motion on the floor is to forward this discussion and the proposed resolution for further discussion to the next council meeting on Monday, so our colleagues can weigh in. I got that correct? We have a motion from Mr. Roseland, second by Mr. Jones. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Wonderful, thank you. And right before we leave, Mr. Roseland touched on new committee assignments. What we're going to do starting next time is we're just going to touch base on the committees that we're on and share anything worthy. It won't go on for a long period of time, but we'll start with Mr. Jones. You want to share your new committee assignments?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My committee assignments are the Parking Board, which meets every 3 months to address parking concerns. If people get a parking ticket and they want to challenge it, that's the group that they take it to. It's been very interesting. The committee is well-versed, and it's been very interesting. I also serve on the Humane Society of the Black Hills Committee. They meet once a month, and we address the overall management of the Humane Society as well as fundraising and activities that go along with that. So two committees I'm very proud to be involved in, and look forward to working with them throughout this year. Thank you.
Great. Mr. Solomon?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I sit on the CIP committee, which helps determine our infrastructure needs. I will be on the Visit Rapid City and Hotel Bid Board, the Elevate Rapid City Board, and any military affairs.
Mr. Nordstrom?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am the CIP chair, and I'm looking forward to all the projects that we're going to be undertaking over this next year. In fact, we just completed a 5-year plan, and I believe we just recently on the city council level adopted that 5-year plan. I'm also a member of the LEPC, which is the Local Emergency Planning Committee, and we just heard from Dustin Willett, and so there is some projects coming forward with that will be also monitored by the Black Hills Council of Local Governments, which is another group that I'm a liaison to. In fact, I'm the recording secretary for them. And the other group that I'm involved with is the Historic Preservation Commission. And we've got a couple of things stewing that we're working on right now. It's not ready for prime time, but we'll be seeing more of that coming. And then the last item I have is that I'm also a liaison member to the Health Insurance Committee for the employees. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Roseland?
Yeah. So we'll have to get it stayed on, okay. I'm basically liaison to the Canyon Lake Senior Center, Air Quality, Black Hills Council, Local Government, Sustainability Committee, MPO, and Parks and Rec. I've been to 3 of those committees already. It's been kind of exciting to listen to what is going on with Parks and Rec and sustainability, and the Canyon Lake Center, or Activity Center. So this is my first foray into all these little committees, but I'm learning a lot, and I'm looking forward to learn a lot more.
Great. And I'll finish up. I'm assigned to CIP, the Rapid City Airport Board, the Human Relations Committee, as well as the Library Board. I thank my colleagues for sharing their committee assignments. I look forward to some updates so we can share with one another and the community. And if we don't have anything else to say, I'd welcome a motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn by Mr. Solomon, second by Mr. Jones. All in favor? And we are adjourned. Thank you.
Before you all walk away, is there a way that we can facilitate?
Absolutely. I think that's